It was March 30th at 11 p.m. when four men were quietly creeping along the sandy riverbed as they approached the mouth of a small cave. What they would find inside would explain a string of missing persons cases in the recent months. But before we dive into the Cave of Horrors, bake the subscribe button a cake and ice it with pure gold flakes. And without further delay, let's jump into the story. It was January 8th, 1672, along the Tulsa River when a 45-year-old career fisherman, Getty Hermain, came back from a day on his handmade boat, the Day Sailor, with his 14-year-old nephew, Luke. The day had been kind to the both of them, bringing back a massive catch of 25 local fish. Docking the boat, he was ambushed with a barrage of questions from another local fisherman, Caleb. Apparently, Caleb's wife had been missing since they had gone out to the river to refill the water reserves. Getty explained he had seen Caleb's wife this morning at around 8 a.m. when he had passed their riverside residence, but nothing looked out of place. Getty offered to take the boat out on the river again if he could see anything strange after he had put today's catch away. Caleb thanked Getty, but he had already looked around the river and didn't see anything. With a hug, Getty told his friend to let him know if he needed anything to come get him before heading home. Getty, feeling a little bit uneasy about what happened to Caleb's wife, walked Luke home despite them being only several houses away. Getty went home and told his wife, Tolly, about what had happened and asked if she had known anything about it. Tolly stood there, staring off into the distance as if she had seen a ghost. Getty had to shake her before she snapped out of her trance, and that's when she had told him about what she had heard Caleb's wife say this morning. What she had told Getty would change the way that he would look at the Tulsa River forever. 10 a.m. that morning, Tolly had met up with Ashley, Caleb's wife, at one of the many riverside offshoot ports that was authorized for laundry. Tolly had noticed that Ashley had looked a little bit shaken, and she told Tolly that she had thought somebody had been following her. It had started at 7 a.m. when she had made her first trip out to the water reserves to refill it. Ashley had sworn she had seen something moving in the water that looked as long as a person. She had noticed it swimming underneath the water when it turned toward her and then disappeared in a blink of an eye. She had thought it might have been a crocodile, so she left. But whenever she had gotten back home, she started hearing noises. Breaking branches, grass moving, but worst of all, when she had gotten inside, she swore she had seen someone peeking inside their house from a window. Ashley hadn't finished filling the water reserves, so she grabbed a knife before she headed back out. Everything had been normal until she had seen Getty float past. A few minutes later, Ashley felt the eyes back on her. After hearing all sorts of noises over the next hour, she decided to leave. Getty looked through the window at the nearby river, uncomfortable about the idea of something or someone stalking her. He knew about some of the dangerous animals in the water, but nothing that'd stalk her all the way to her house. He had put on a brave face and told Tally that Ashley was fine, and if she wasn't back by tomorrow, he'd spend some time tomorrow looking for her himself. It didn't do much, but the two double-checked the locks on the doors to ensure that they were good to go. The next day, Ashley wasn't back and he had kept his word, but he had taken Caleb with him and they had spent the whole day looking for her. There was a search party out looking, but the village was no more than 250 people. After 3 days of looking, the number of volunteers shrunk down to less than 10, and several days after that, it was only Caleb looking. Life returned back to normal, but with a looming cloud of discomfort over the village. Whispers spread around about somebody stalking the village and taking her off. Some even went as far as to say that Caleb had killed her. It wasn't a secret that the two had been having problems in their marriage as of late, with the news that Ashley had become pregnant. Even though Getty had given up on the search, he kept an eye out for anything that could hopefully lead them to bring his dear friend's wife back. 3 weeks after Ashley's disappearance, another local fisherman's wife went missing. Getty had gone to the scene to see what happened, but the authorities had blocked off access to the house. Despite this, he could clearly see that the small house had been turned upside down and was left in a mess. Getty went to the local bathing spot and found out that there had only been a few splotches of blood left behind, and a window had been broken and there was a massive claw mark on a wall. This news shook Getty as he sat there. He had lived here 45 years and the worst thing that had happened was somebody drowning after they had gotten too drunk. But now there was somebody actively killing people. He had shared what his wife had told him, and one of the local fishermen told him he had seen something similar in the water a couple times in the river south of the village. The following day, a group of men grabbed hatchets, spears, and sailed down the river to see what they could find. but after 2 hours on the water, they hadn't found anything. The group had gone hungry, so they parked the boat and stretched out their legs before sitting down to have lunch. Getty went to go pee, and as he relieved himself on a nearby tree when he heard his group of friends laughing. Back at the camp, 10 minutes had passed before they had noticed that Getty hadn't returned. They went to go check on him, and on a tree several yards into the woods was a series of fresh splotches of blood. Arming up, the men had followed the small traces of blood down the river to a small cave off of one of the river's offshoots. The men went back to the village to go get others. This is the following account of what happened that would change how the small village would view the river. It was 11 p.m. when 4 men were quietly creeping along the sandy riverbed as they approached the mouth of the small cave. Stepping inside the cave, they stood ankle deep in the water from the river. The cave had been filled with a musk of rotten meat that made one of the men throw up. They followed the cave tunnel several hundred feet when they had entered into a chamber that looked like it had an opening in the back that continued downward. Guided by only torchlight, the group looked around and found the motionless body of Getty on the western wall, surrounded by the skeletal remains of another person. Right then, one of the men was smashed by a massive blur. They turned and came face to face with a massive sea panther. Its blue fur glistened with the blood of its latest kill as one of the fishermen lay motionless on the ground with his head wrung to the side. The men readied themselves with their hands shaking as the beast looked at them, his eyes transfixed. One of the fishermen charged at it, his hatchet raised and brought it down, causing the animal to move to the side. It lunged at the man on the right, who had hesitated, and slammed its head into his stomach. The man crumpled to the ground, and the panther swiped a clawed paw across the man's throat. The fisherman who had charged saw his friend go down and took off running to the exit, leaving the last standing man behind as he had called out for him to hold up, only for his words to be cut off. Making it back to the village, the survivor told the tale of what haunted their village. As a last resort, the village started leaving a portion of the daily catches near the cave in hopes that the beast would leave them be. There had been some pushback at first, but when the survivor had told them of the clear intelligence the beast moved with, they had relented to trying the offerings. To this day, the killings within their village had stopped, but supposedly their neighboring villages weren't so lucky. It is said that the panther is still living in the cave taking its offerings. With the mystery of the Tulsa River missing persons solved, it's time to move on to another story. If you like this, check out the Raiders Past Killer or Unvek's Haunted Forest video. All these stories are based off my webcomic and manga series inspired by my homebrew D&D campaigns that I ran for over a decade. You can read them all for free by clicking the link in the bio, and let me know what you think in my fan Discord where you can win free commissions from my team just by interacting.